released in 1996, was directed by Michael Bay, produced by powerhouse production duo Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, and this movie stars Sean Connery, Ed Harris and Nicolas Cage. The Rock tells a story about General Francis Hummell, a brilliant war veteran played by Ed Harris, who is frustrated that the US government hasn't acknowledged or supported any of the families of the Marines who died under his command, or recognized them for any of their achievements. So Hummell, along with his team of soldiers, decide to hijack Alcatraz, which has 81 tourists on board, and threatens to launch poisonous gas missiles into San Francisco unless his demands are met. So it is up to a team that includes Stanley Goodspeed, who is a chemical weapons expert, and John Mason, played by Sean Connery, who happens to be the only person to have ever broken out of Alcatraz, to help break into Alcatraz and stop General Hummell. Before we go any further, guys, I want you to hit that subscribe button so you can follow this channel. I want you to hit the alarm bell as well so you can get notifications for when my video is going to be uploaded, and give this video a like as well. In doing these retro reviews from 1996, I can honestly say that I have saved the best for last. The Rock is one of my favourite action films of all time, and more importantly, one of my favourite films of all time. This is a solid, well-paced, tense and entertaining thriller. Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, beyond a shadow of doubt, one of the greatest production duos of all time, who were responsible for such classic 80s hits as Flashdance, Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop. But in the mid-90s, there was a significant change in the types of films that they were making. They weren't just making high-octane films, they were making films that relied more on plot than action. And The Rock marks a continuation of another intelligent film that Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer produced a year earlier, Crimson Tide, which was directed by Tony Scott. And funnily enough, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer approached Tony Scott to direct The Rock. Whilst you can call The Rock Die Hard on Alcatraz, I feel that it is so much more than that. This is a film with intelligence as well as emotion. And it is the characters in this film that shift The Rock into a different direction. Namely, General Hummell. His character is so unique because this isn't a film about good versus bad. This is about a war general who wants recognition for his troops who have died. And General Hummell is based upon a real-life character called General David Hackworth, who was a war hero in Vietnam and who criticized the US government for its handling of Vietnam and the way that it treated its troops in Vietnam. General Hummell is a character that you can empathize with. He's not someone that you hate. This is the man who demands money, not for himself, but for the funds to be distributed amongst the families of the Marines who died under his command, and the rest to go to his soldiers. And you see him conflicted. He doesn't want any violence. He doesn't want anybody to get hurt. And you see that throughout the start of the film to the end of the film. When we see General Hummell on Alcatraz, we see him go to a group of children. He says, listen, I need you to tell your teacher they need to get onto the boat and go right now. And the brilliant shootout in a shower room, when we see that his troops are actually killing the Navy commandos who are actually trying to stop General Hummell, you can hear him yelling to them, cease fire. He doesn't want anybody to get hurt. In addition to General Hummell, you've got some brilliantly written characters. John Mason, played by Sean Connery, and you can call John Mason James Bond at 60 plus. He is a former SAS operative who has broken out of Alcatraz, and he was also falsely imprisoned because he stole some microfilm that contained some sensitive secrets. And you've got Stanley Goodspeed as well, a chemical weapons expert whose girlfriend is pregnant, and after being asked to go to San Francisco, his girlfriend comes to San Francisco as well. So there is a lot at stake for each party involved. The Rock is a very well-written film, and The Rock went through numerous rewrites. And Quentin Tarantino, who did a rewrite on Crimson Tide, was also responsible for rewriting The Rock, as was Aaron Sorkin. But either way, this film is filled with very rich dialogue, very intelligent, and some very dry moments of humour as well. But this is also a very well-directed film, directed by none other than Michael Bay. And Michael Bay is somebody that you either love him or you hate him. The Rock marked the second of 5 collaborations between he and Jerry Bruckheimer, but this, I would say, is his best, and holds a very high score on Rotten Tomatoes. And Michael Bay, at a time, did direct some very good films. Bad Boys, The Rock. He went a bit haywire a few years later, but then he redeemed himself with the first Transformers film. But this is a solid entry from him. And prior to directing The Rock, he directed Bad Boys. And you can see elements that he used in Bad Boys, he has applied to The Rock. So the musical score, courtesy of Hans Zimmer, it sounds a lot like the musical score that was used by Mark Mancina in Bad Boys. There's a 360 shot that he used in Bad Boys, that he has used in The Rock as well, and he's used in other films also. The Rock has some outstanding performances. Sean Connery as John Mason. This catapulted him back onto the A-list of action stars at 66 years old. But what I liked most about this character is that we get to see Sean Connery kick ass. Because prior to that, his last solid film that was more thriller and mystery than action was Rising Sun with he and Wesley Snipes. But we get to see Sean Connery kick ass and display dry humour just like he did in the Bond films. And what I liked most about his character was the fact that his character is a former SAS operative, and just like Bond, he doesn't rely heavily on gadgetry. This is a guy that throws knives to kill people, he breaks necks, and I like the banter between he and Nicolas Cage. And whilst Nicolas Cage has been in numerous films, he hadn't tackled the action genre, and this was a solid entry for him. And he would go on to solidify himself as an action star in further action hits such as Con Air and Face Off. The Rock has some brilliant moments in it. It has a spectacular car chase through San Francisco. It has some brilliant shootouts. And I love seeing the descent amongst General Hummell's team. Where it doesn't look like the Pentagon is going to pay, we see General Hummell launch a rocket into San Francisco. But realizing that he's a soldier, not a murderer, and that he doesn't want to hurt anybody, he diverts the rocket and it crashes into the water. And then we see his troops question his judgment. We get a Mexican standoff, and then there's a brilliant shootout. And another fantastic moment of brilliant acting between two powerhouse actors is where we see Mason go to confront General Hummell.
The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Thomas Jefferson.
Patriotism is the virtue of the vicious, according to Oscar Wilde.
And you got some fantastic set pieces set aboard Alcatraz. And my favourite sequence is the green smoke sequence. Just that iconic sequence is brilliant and beautifully put together. The Rock was meant to have a sequel. In the early 2000s, Jerry Bruckheimer was talking about films that he wanted to produce, and the sequel to The Rock was one of them. In the ending of the first film, the microfilm that Mason had stolen, he tells Goodspeed where he hid it. And Goodspeed now has the microfilm. So the premise of the sequel is that a group of mercenaries know that Goodspeed has the microfilm. They go after him, they go after his family. Mason knows that Goodspeed would have been in danger, and Mason and Goodspeed team up together to take on the mercenaries. And there was meant to be another finale aboard Alcatraz. That didn't take off, that plot. And rightly so, because if you look at how I just described the plot, that premise was used in the 1998 blockbuster by Jerry Bruckheimer, Enemy of the State, starring Will Smith and Gene Hackman. But I'm glad that they've left it as it is, and I hope that they leave it that way. And the legacy of this film is that it's one of the best films to come out from 1996. And sadly, Don Simpson died during the production of The Rock, and the film was dedicated to his memory. But brilliant film, with a brilliant supporting cast, and hands down, my favourite film from 1996. So I'll give this film a very strong 10 out of 10. So guys, that's my review, and that's my final review from the year 1996. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, as always, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button so you can follow this channel. Hit the alarm bell as well so you can get notifications when my video is going to be uploaded. Give this video a like as well. What is your favourite moment from The Rock? Comment down below and I shall see you all in the next film review. Take care.